Hey friends, it's me, Jade. Today we are going to see Solo. The last few vlogs of mine have been mostly Star Wars vlogs. So I feel like I've been doing a lot of Star Wars, but like I said, make me a Star War. I've got a whole half sleeve with the Falcon and Solo and Organa, and it's just gorgeous, and you can't see it because there's a shirt on it. I'm just a big Star Wars fan. So I haven't really been allowing myself to get too excited, because after The Last Jedi, I'm like, I cannot let myself get too emotionally invested in this series anymore, because I'm just going to be disappointed. So my expectations for this movie are actually extremely low, because I already get the sense that they are going to kind of bash Solo's character. Like, he's not going to be the Solo that we know. My friend and I were saying that we think they're going to portray him like as a player, which he just doesn't come off as. I'm very, very excited though for Donald Glover as Lando. Chewie, oh my god. Gotta love Chewie always. He gives the best hugs. You can tell that I'm trying to be positive about it in my video here, but inside, I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm filled with doubt. I am, and I'm hoping to walk out of the theater pleasantly surprised. Not super excited about it. Not angry about it right now. Excited to see certain actors. I am curious to see what they do with the story. I am going to go to the movie, and I don't know if I should get a coffee or a Coke. See you guys in a bit. Bye. Okay, so I'm back, and I have finished my viewing of Solo. It's actually been a couple hours. I had to sit and I had to think for a little while, because I had to decide whether or not this movie was good because it was actually good, or if it was good because my expectations were really low. And I've come to the conclusion that it's just actually a really good movie. Going into it, I would have given it like a 6 out of 10. I was thinking, like, I'll be optimistic, I'll give it a sort of high, but not really high rating. And then walking out of it, I was like, I'm gonna give this an 8 out of 10. And now I'm thinking maybe like 7.5. 7.5 is good. So let's dive right in. And it's gonna be hard for me not to be super analytical, because that's my background and that's what I really enjoy doing. So I'm gonna be a little bit analytical. So first of all, spoiler alert, there's gonna be a lot of spoilers. So if you haven't seen it yet, or if you haven't seen it yet, then click away. If you haven't seen it but you don't care about spoilers, then keep watching, I guess, but know that choice is on you. It's a really great movie. It's totally worth your time. I thought that it did a really good job of explaining Han's character and giving us some background that is actually really believable, and I'm going to explain why as that goes on, but there's spoilers, so watch at your own risk. Yeah, so I was really concerned they were going to ruin his character. They absolutely did not do that, and I'm going to explain how and why. But alright, so getting right into it, we have got Alden Ehrenreich? I'm going to butcher that name, and I'm sorry, but I go by a different name because my given name is too hard to say also, so I'm used to my name being butchered, and I think people that have difficult names are used to it. But I apologize anyway. We have him, Alden, as Han. We have Woody Harrelson as Tobias Beckett. Woody Harrelson's character has like a girlfriend or a wife named Val, and Val is played by Thandie Newton, and I really enjoyed her character. We've got Rio, who's voiced by Jon Favreau. We got Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who is L3-37. So Lando Calrissian is played by Donald Glover, who did an absolutely amazing job. Paul Bettany is Dryden Voss. Dryden Voss is the guy that basically gets Han into the life of smuggling. Or Emilia Clarke, who was Kira. And Kira, in the beginning, we're introduced to her as Han's love interest, and this is where I'm going to get into really the movie and some analytical parts. So if you did not enjoy high school and college English or film discussions or anything like that, then go ahead and have a lovely day. Enjoy your life. But if you do enjoy some of that, then keep on watching. So we meet Han, and he's stolen a car, or a speeder, whatever you call them, and he's running away from somebody that's gonna kill him, which we later find out he was doing a job for Lady Proxima, which is this like centipede creature that lives in the water and can't see sunlight or else it will die, who has enslaved Han and Kira and all these other children, and they have to go and like steal stuff so that she'll give them food and protection. He has failed at it, but he kept one so that he and Kira can get off the planet and finally be free. And you can tell that he really loves this girl, and he's like, we're gonna have adventures, we're gonna go off and we're gonna buy a ship and we're gonna be free and it's gonna be great and I'm gonna be with you forever and blah blah blah. Because like when you're young and in love and in shit, you're making all kinds of mistakes because you're like, I love this person. Not to get me wrong, like Val at one point says everybody needs somebody, and as Rio's dying, he's like, Val was right. It's not good to die alone. But they never really touch on that later because I think that's kind of something that Han carries with him for the rest of his life. And then he meets Leia and everything's good, except, you know, for later on. But that's another discussion entirely. Back to the point. They're about to get off the planet. They've bribed a Imperial security employee, like TSA or whatever, with this coaxium, and as they're running through the gate, somebody, I think it was either the people that work for Lady Proxima or the stormtroopers, grabs Kira, and Han is the only one that gets through. So he makes these promises to himself that he's going to become a pilot. He's going to buy a ship make enough money to buy a ship to go back to get Kira. So he, in a moment of desperation, joins the Imperial Army, which you know immediately is not something that he would do if he wasn't desperate, because you can tell that he doesn't really support what they're doing, but that's not the point. He just needs some money and the training to be a pilot so that he can go back and rescue Kira. So he's in the Imperial Army for 3 years. Then he meets Beckett and gets into the life of smuggling. One thing led to another, and he ends up on Dryden Voss's ship, and he's reunited with Kira. And you can tell instantly that Kira has shifted. There is something completely different about her character now than when we last saw her. So this is where I think that the story holds up and really, really supports Han's character later on. Because I read some reviews before I started filming this, and there were a lot of people that were saying it doesn't make sense and it doesn't explore how Han turns into the wary and cynical dude that we meet in A New Hope and that Leia falls in love with, because he's very cynical and very wary of Leia. Like, he doesn't really want to fall in love with her. So the idea that runs through this whole movie is the idea of trust. And the one thing that's really enforced is that you should trust no one. That's what Beckett says, is assume everyone will betray you and you will never be disappointed, which Han ends up using like to his advantage in the end of the movie when Beckett turns on him and he's like, I was expecting you to do that. But again, with also, people are predictable, which is something that Beckett also says. He tells Chewie people are predictable. So who all betrays him? Beckett betrays him, Lando betrays him, which he can kind of expect because he doesn't know these guys very well. He just met them, and especially since Beckett's the one that told him to assume everyone will betray you. But Kira, he has worked he's worked a long time. He's known Kira since they were kids, and he risked his life to get them off of that planet. And then he spends 3 years in the Imperial Army with this mindset of he's going to go back and he's going to rescue Kira. And then when he's finally reunited with Kira, she is not interested in being with him anymore. And she tells him that she's right behind him, that she's going to go with him, and instead she ends up flying away and now taking over this Crimson whatever. So it makes a lot of sense that he would end up so cynical and wary, because this girl that he was in love with for a long time and spent a long time trying to get back to her doesn't want any part of it. So the unreciprocated feelings, especially when it looks like they were reciprocated 3 years ago, is a huge reason to turn up cynical. We also, as the end of the movie, Han is going to Tatooine because he's heard about a job by a big mob boss, who we can only assume is Jabba the Hutt, is being put together. And he wants in. I mean, he's gotten a taste of the smuggler life now. He's already deserted the Imperial Army. There's not really any other kind of life for him out there but to be a smuggler. And he's got an awesome smuggling ship that just did the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs. It was pretty cool that we got to see how the Kessel Run happened. I very much enjoyed that. So you can only assume that with living a life of crime or smuggling, I guess they go hand in hand, he's gonna have a lot more betrayal and disappointment, which will lead one to become wary and cynical really darn quick. The people that are saying that it doesn't match up weren't paying attention and aren't listening and aren't thinking about the future. What this does is this sets up the pattern that Han is going to follow for the rest of his life. And also it helps set up and helps us understand why he ends up so cynical. You don't just turn cynical after one interaction. You can't have a movie where one thing happens and then, oh, he's cynical for the rest of his life. You've got to fill in the blanks with your head, which we had to do with the original Star Wars, because all of a sudden stuff would happen between the movies and we'd have to go, okay, so we got from the end of Empire Strikes Back to the beginning of Return of the Jedi, and now Leia's like, okay, and working with Lando to go free Han, and Luke's become a Jedi in the meantime. Okay, we'll just accept that. So you have to assume that stuff happened in between those two movies to get to that point, just like you have to assume that stuff happened between Solo and A New Hope. Like, sure, it makes perfect sense that Luke has become a Jedi between the end of Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, because it's Return of the Jedi, and also, why would he stop training? He's still doing that. So you have to also assume that at the end of Solo, Han goes to work for the Hutt and becomes extremely wary and cynical by living this life of crime. I mean, how did Beckett end up to be so cynical? And oh my god, assume everyone will betray you is so dark and depressing. Totally makes sense that this is how he ends up being super cynical. So if you think that it's not, you're not paying attention and you're not thinking. It makes sense that he would end up in that way, especially because Kira is his childhood love, and being betrayed by your childhood love does some shit to you. Like, you have to really step back and think, like, wow, what choices did I make to end up falling in love with this person who has now done something so hurtful and painful to me? So that, I think it makes perfect sense. Han is very much more humanized, and he's not just the scoundrel that we met him as. Solo, 7.5, it's definitely worth your time. It is a solid origin story for Han and also Chewie. We get to see how they meet each other, and it's awesome. It's pretty funny. I really enjoyed L3. L3's character was absolutely amazing. I think L3 might be one of the top parts, the top characters in the movie, and I feel like she's going to be really underrated, so you really just pay attention to her character. It's really entertaining. And Donald Glover was solid as Lando, solid young Lando. And I feel bad for Alden because a lot of people are like, oh, he doesn't look like Harrison Ford. No, he does not. And I was really surprised because I'm gonna be honest, I was not excited about them casting him as Han Solo. He did a solid young Solo. He did a solid job. It was great. So that's it for me for now. I don't know what else I'm gonna do next. I kind of like these movie reviews, even though I've just done Star Wars, but we'll see where it goes from there. I've kind of got some ideas brewing, but whether or not I'll execute them is a whole other thing. So go ahead and hit that like button if you saw Solo and you liked it. Tell me in the comments what you thought of the movie, and go ahead and hit the subscribe button for more stuff. Don't forget to be kind to one another, and if you forget who you are, call someone.